Ken, you were just covering the Rangers and the Dodgers this past weekend. I want to start with the Dodgers, what I will call pitching injury epidemic. I do think still exists here. They spoke last year about how they were going to spend the offseason or part of the offseason figuring out how they can do this better. Do you feel like there are any changes within the organization? Because, we had the Blake Trinan news, and there's still plenty of guys that are hurt for them already.
It seems to me what they were talking about then was more at the minor league level and trying to get guys in a better place physically so they can sustain themselves and stay healthy. I don't know that they made changes at the major league level. All teams make tweaks in the offseason. That I expect would have happened. But I haven't asked specifically if they've changed things. And clearly, we need to remember here, they're coming off a deep run in the postseason. Whenever a team does this, the Dodgers or anyone else, there is a toll to pay the next season. Sometimes you'll see pitchers not as effective. Sometimes you'll see them get hurt. Blake Trinan was used heavily in the postseason, right? So it's not exactly a shock that he's down for a little bit. Glasnow is always hurt. When they acquired him, he was a guy who had that reputation, and little has changed to adjust that reputation. So I don't know that it's anything abnormal that's going on with them right now. It's merely a continuation of what has happened in the past, but with the difference being they went so deep in the postseason, you have to expect a little bit of these kinds of problems to occur.
Ken, a little bit of a different topic than the Dodgers, who just seem to figure everything out. The Braves. What happened with the Braves? Has there been anything else from the Acuña, Snitker? Have they had a conversation that you know of? Has there been any talk? Because I just thought it was crazy that Acuña would say this, at all, but especially on Twitter, deleted, whatever. But has there been any conversations about this from the Braves or each other?
I don't know that they've talked to each other yet. I imagine they will. And as I wrote yesterday, everybody involved should have known better. Kelenic should have run, Snitker should have benched him, and Acuña should have dealt with this privately rather than in public forum, such as X. That said, as I wrote also, Acuña had a point. And I know that he and Inciarte and Acuña had previously not run hard, and that's what led to their benchings, where Kelenic has not been that kind of guy, that have not had that problem with him. It still was a bad look not to bench him in that situation. Keep in mind, they hadn't had a 2-game winning streak all year at that point. Games tied. He gets thrown out at second base. So from that perspective, I thought Snitker missed an opportunity there to make an example of a player who might not even be with them once Acuña returns. And he did not take it. And with that, he left himself open to that kind of question from Acuña, which we can all agree was probably not the right thing to do publicly on Acuña's part, but I understood where that was coming from.
I got a little bit roasted in the chat because I said, should we loosen the social media during the game ban in Major League Baseball? We want more connection to players. Should Major League Baseball loosen that to some extent, or should it just be a cold blanket no?
Well, this relates more to Jazz Chisholm Jr.'s tweet the other day about the umpire. And honestly, Eric, in my opinion, they should not loosen it. And the reason I say that is a player's focus during a game should be on the game. And hey, you've heard teams like the Angels talk about banning phones in the clubhouse because it's deteriorating, or detracting, I should say, from players' focus. During a game, it's not the place to be tweeting, I don't think. And I can see where the league could loosen it, but my goodness, I would imagine you want your players more focused than looking at X 1 minute, looking at Instagram another, and then maybe looking up at the field and seeing what's going on. I don't know that that's a great look.
FT fam, I hope you have as much confidence as Penelope right now, who is an avid Spot and Tango fan, okay? And she uses the code FOUL, Kratz, because this is a personalized dog food subscription service that prevents you, of course, from going to the store to pick up the food, and she just gets the highest quality unkibble. That is what they're known for. And I know you love the quiz part of it too.
It's a super quick quiz, but it lets you give them the information and they tailor it to what is needed based on their age, size, activity level, all things that are custom for each and every one of your dogs.
Yeah, human grade ingredients in that unkibble. USDA meat, fruits, and veggies that are approved there. Upgrade your pet's bowl with Spot and Tango Unkibble. Go for it. For a limited time, go to spotandtango.com/foul. Use code FOUL to get 50% off your first order. That is spotandtango.com/foul. Code FOUL to get 50% off your first order at spotandtango.com/foul. Code FOUL.
Let's go to Steinbrenner Field. We saw that the fair polls came up a little short, and that was something that nobody probably even really thought that much about when they moved in. What else are we missing that is going to come into play in a negative way in these minor league parks, Steinbrenner or at Sutter Field?
The one thing that we haven't discussed much, but certainly is a factor in a one-deck stadium, is wind. There is greater wind, perhaps, in these stadiums. Certainly the greater potential for wind being a factor. We've seen that at times at Steinbrenner Field, and it can come into play later in the season. And certainly with both parks also, speaking of atmospheric conditions, it's going to get warm in the summer months in both places. So I'm anxiously awaiting to see how these things play out. It's really too soon to form a judgment one way or the other. We all know it's not an ideal circumstance. One of these circumstances is self-inflicted. That would be the Sacramento A's. And the other is simply the result of natural disaster. The hurricane that, of course, blew the roof off Tropicana Field. So you can't compare them in that regard. And it's unfortunate that this has happened at all, that baseball has to be playing in minor league parks. But again, we'll just have to see how this all evolves over time. And my greater concern really is for the A's, because the Rays are going to move back to Tropicana Field at some point. It certainly appears that way. Who knows how long the A's are going to be in Sutter Field? We hear 3 years. That's their goal. They still haven't broken ground yet in Vegas. Could be 4 years. That is not a healthy thing for the sport. I am sorry. It is not healthy to have a team playing in a minor league park for even 3 years, much less 4.
Ken, on this rule, why can't we get cameras at every major league park right down the line that are just stationary cameras? I know it wouldn't be that big of a cost. You don't need anyone manning them. Why can't we just have a camera on each line that just sits there? I mean, you could put it on whatever you need to, you put it on the side, one of the sides of the facade of the stadium, whatever. It doesn't have to be someone standing there holding it. Just put a camera down the line, and we should be able to figure that. You could take the telestrator and draw a straight line up from the foul pole and say it was fair or foul. I just don't understand. This could be the easiest solution the Major League Baseball has ever had. Doesn't that sound stupid, by the way?
AJ, I hadn't thought of that, but sure, that would be a solution. It doesn't seem to be that kind of costly solution. It's not going to cost you that much money, as you said. I don't know why they don't do that. I haven't asked why they don't do that, but certainly in the future, at those ballparks in particular, with the shorter foul poles, that would be one way to get around what's going on. Now, let's point out, too, that the foul pole at Steinbrenner Field, the two of them, they are within the boundaries of what MLB wants, which is a 30-foot high foul pole. That's the minimum, and they're at 30 feet. But in a larger stadium with 3 decks, you have a 90-foot foul pole. And if there had been a 90-foot foul pole at Steinbrenner Field the other day, I believe Aaron Judge would have had a home run.
Do we feel like this has to be collectively bargained, or can it be collectively bargained that, you know what, we're not playing at minor league parks barring a natural disaster?
I would expect, Eric, that in the next round of collective bargaining negotiations, this is going to be a topic. Now, keep in mind, the Players Association agreed to what's going on here, certainly in both situations. And you can say in some ways they had no choice, and certainly accommodations were made for players to ensure that the facilities were as up to major league quality as humanly possible. But I would expect, yes, that in the next CBA, this is something the union will want to look at, because let's face it, it's not an ideal situation. And it's not an ideal situation for many reasons, but let's look at it solely from a player's perspective. Are you able to achieve as a player your full optimal ability playing in one of these places where you don't have the facilities and the different areas of improvement that you could pursue in bigger parks, in major league parks, in places that have all kinds of resources available to players? That would be a concern of mine as a union.
Ken, I want to take us to the Red Sox. I know you talked for a moment about Triston Casas yesterday on Fair Territory, so people can check that out. But just getting some questions here in the chat about him and also about Yoshida and just how you see their roster playing out over time if health doesn't make things change automatically.
It's a good question, obviously. And let's start by saying there's never a problem when you have too many good players. And that could be where the Red Sox are headed with Roman Anthony coming, or eventually Marcelo Mayer as well. But it seems to me, as far as the Casas Yoshida question is concerned, at some point there is going to need to be a decision. And one of those guys is probably not going to be on the roster. Now, I wrote in the offseason, and I had some fun with this yesterday. I wrote a column saying, picture Alex Bregman at third base and picture Triston Casas getting traded to the Mariners for one of their pitchers. And I heard from a number of members of Red Sox Nation telling me, well, I won't even say what they said. But that said, they signed Bregman, of course, and they still have this question with Casas, at least, as long as Devers is a DH too, because keep in mind, he might want to get back to the field at some point. So these are issues that might resolve on their own, might require the team to resolve them in some fashion. But yeah, they have a question with all of these guys. There's too many of them to fit on one roster. It's a good thing, but ultimately it's going to lead to some kind of move one way or the other.
Hey, everybody. Be sure to like and subscribe for more content.
We're back here every weekday, all year long, so do not miss an episode.
The videos are coming in all day. Here's another video you might enjoy.
Baseball the way it should be covered.